He's still there. Right now, he's already killed who lives and has been in Dodge.
And he'd go on killing unless he stepped.
Yeah, just like one of them hound dogs.
He was more than a stubborn mule and a funny hat. The man behind Festus was a walking, talking book of weird facts. We are counting down 15 facts about Festus from Gunsmoke. Alright, let's start with the facts. Fact number 1. Kicking off our list is a coincidence so bizarre you'd think a Hollywood writer made it up. When Ken Curtis joined Gunsmoke as Festus, he famously replaced the beloved deputy Chester Good. But here's the weird part. Ken Curtis had a real-life twin brother named Chester. That's right, the man who played Festus was born Curtis Wayne Gates, alongside his twin Chester. It's one of those strange twists of fate that sounds too perfect to be true. While his brother lived a private life, the irony is just golden. Fact number 2.
To your love to the ground. Lonely but free I'll be found.
Before he was a scruffy deputy, Ken Curtis was a smooth singing crooner who stepped into some of the biggest shoes in music history. In 1941, he joined the legendary Tommy Dorsey Orchestra as their lead vocalist. And who did he replace? None other than the rising star, Frank Sinatra. For a brief period, Curtis was the voice of one of the most popular bands in America. It was actually Tommy Dorsey who suggested he change his name from Curtis Wayne Gates to the catchier Ken Curtis. So the next time you hear Festus's warbly singing voice, remember that the man behind it once filled in for the chairman of the board himself. Fact number 3.
Have you noticed how O'Neill's acting kind of peculiar here?
That voice. You can hear it in your head right now, can't you? The whiny, cantankerous, and utterly unique sound of Festus Hagen. Well, get ready for a shock, because it was all an act, a complete fabrication. In reality, Ken Curtis possessed a rich, smooth baritone speaking and singing voice. He was a professional singer, not a backwoods squawker. He developed the Festus voice specifically for the character, making it one of the most convincing vocal performances in television history. The man could have been a radio announcer, but instead, he chose to sound like he'd been gargling gravel, and we loved him for it. Fact number 4. It seems Ken Curtis was destined to be around lawmen his entire life. Long before he was a deputy in Dodge City, he got a very intimate look at the justice system. How intimate? He literally lived in a jail. In 1926, his father, Dan Gates, was elected sheriff of Bent County, Colorado. As was the custom back then, the sheriff's family lived in an apartment right above the jailhouse. Young Ken Curtis spent his formative years with the town's criminals just one floor below. Even weirder, his mother was responsible for cooking all the meals for the prisoners. So while Festus was always trying to stay out of jail, Ken Curtis grew up calling one home. Fact number 5. Great characters often have real-life inspiration, but the origin of Festus Hagen is pure gold.
Except maybe Paul. Well, you're gonna see somebody do it right now since I get a little practice here.
Remember how Ken Curtis grew up in a jail? Well, he got a front row seat to all the local characters. One of them, a man known only as Cedar Jack, was a regular customer. Cedar Jack lived out in the hills, cutting cedar fence posts for a living. But whenever he came to town, he'd get roaring drunk and inevitably end up in Sheriff Gates's jail. Curtis said he patterned Festus's mannerisms, his stubbornness, and his whole way of being after this one man. So every time you see Festus, you're actually watching a tribute to a real-life town drunk from the 1920s. If you're enjoying this trip down memory lane, do an old cowpoke a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're dedicated to keeping the golden age of television alive, and your support helps us bring you more stories just like this one. Fact number 6. In Hollywood, it's all about who you know. But for Ken Curtis, it was about who he married. In 1952, Curtis wed Barbara Ford, making one of the most powerful and legendary directors in history his father-in-law, the one and only John Ford. This family connection opened up a whole new world. Ford cast his son-in-law in numerous classic films, often alongside his good friend John Wayne. From The Searchers to The Quiet Man, Curtis became part of this iconic filmmaking circle. While Festus was just a humble deputy, Ken Curtis was rubbing elbows with, and was quite literally family to, Hollywood royalty. Fact number 7. Every actor has a skeleton in their closet, but Ken Curtis had giant shrews? In 1959, years before his Gunsmoke fame, Curtis took a bizarre detour into producing monster movies.
Father, perhaps the captain would enjoy a drink.
Well, of course. Will you join us in a cocktail? Well, I've never been known to turn down a drink yet. I'll be glad to accept.
So,
He unleashed two of the most infamous ultra-low-budget creature features of the era. First came The Killer Shrews, a film notorious for using coonhounds disguised as giant bloodthirsty rodents. He followed that masterpiece up with The Giant Gila Monster. It's a wild thought. The man who would become America's favorite deputy was also responsible for unleashing some of cinema's silliest monsters on the world. Fact number 8.
Sure, I'll go. And you'll be sure of getting a signal.
Festus was surprisingly quick with a 6-shooter, always drawing with his right hand. But have you ever noticed what happens when he picks up a rifle? Pay close attention, because it's a weird one. He switches sides completely. He would bring the rifle to his left shoulder and aim with his left eye. This wasn't a goof. Ken Curtis was right-handed, but left eye dominant, a common trait where your dominant eye doesn't match your dominant hand. A fascinatingly subtle detail that most fans never even caught. Fact number 9. Festus Hagen's very first appearance on Gunsmoke was a dramatic one. He rode into Dodge City on a mission of vengeance, looking for the man who killed his identical twin brother, Fergus Hagen. It was a powerful introduction that set up a deep backstory. But then, Fergus was never mentioned again. For the next 11 years and over 300 episodes, the fact that Festus even had a twin was completely dropped. It's a classic case of early show weirdness, a major plot point that just vanished into thin air. Fact number 10. That cantankerous voice wasn't just for chasing.
I had wings like Noah's dove.
Outlaws in Dodge City. In 1973, Ken Curtis lent his unique vocal talents to a very different kind of project, a Disney animated classic. He voiced the character of Nutsy, one of Prince John's dim-witted vulture guards in Robin Hood. Once you know it's him, you can't unhear it. That's right, the voice of Festus Hagen is officially part of the Disney universe. Fact number 11. Festus Hagen might have seemed more at home in a dusty saloon, but the man who played him was at home on one of the most prestigious stages in the world. As a lead singer for the renowned Western group the Sons of the Pioneers, Ken Curtis performed at New York City's Carnegie Hall. It's a stunning contrast. The scruffy, illiterate deputy from Dodge City singing beautiful harmonies in a place reserved for the world's greatest musical artists. Fact number 12. In the world of Gunsmoke, Festus often deferred to his cantankerous Uncle Black Jack Hagen. But in the real world, Hollywood casting created a very funny age reversal. Ken Curtis was actually almost 4 years older than Denver Pyle, the actor who played his uncle. It's a classic bit of TV magic where the actors' real ages tell a completely different story than the one you see on screen. Fact number 13. In 1987, fans were thrilled when Gunsmoke Return to Dodge was announced, bringing back the original cast for one last ride. James Arness was back as Matt Dillon. Amanda Blake returned as Miss Kitty. But someone was glaringly absent. Where was Festus? The answer, sadly, was money. Ken Curtis refused to appear, and the story behind it is pure Hollywood drama. The producer claimed Curtis demanded double the salary of his co-star Amanda Blake. However, other sources fire back, saying the offer made to Curtis was so insultingly low that he had no choice but to walk away. Either way, the fans lost out, and Festus never rode into Dodge again. Fact number 14. This next fact is a dark and controversial part of Ken Curtis's story. His marriage to Barbara Ford, the daughter of director John Ford, ended in divorce in 1964. While Hollywood divorces are common, what followed was not. The end of the marriage also meant the end of Curtis's long and fruitful working relationship with his powerful father-in-law. John Ford didn't just cut him out of his films, he went a step further. In later interviews, the legendary director publicly accused Curtis of having been a wife-beater. It was a shocking and serious accusation that cast a dark shadow over the public image of the man beloved for playing the goofy deputy. The accusation was never proven in court, but it remains a disturbing part of his legacy. Fact number 15. When he wasn't on the Gunsmoke set, Ken Curtis was passionate about real-world politics. In 1976, he hit the campaign trail not for a local sheriff, but for a future president. Curtis was an outspoken supporter of Ronald Reagan during his attempt to win the Republican nomination from the incumbent, President Gerald Ford. It wasn't uncommon for stars to back candidates, but Curtis's Western persona gave his endorsement a unique all-American flavor. The man who played a deputy was helping to elect a cowboy. From a jailhouse childhood to the grand stage of Carnegie Hall, from B-movie monsters to the inner circle of Hollywood legends, Ken Curtis was so much more than a funny voice and a misshapen hat. He was a singer, a producer, and a complex man who created one of television's most enduring characters. What's your favorite Festus moment? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about the legends of the Old West. Thanks for watching.